I'm Pooja Majmudar, Director of Silicon Valley Bank in the Healthcare Life Sciences early stage banking practice. By background, I have a PhD in molecular biology, spent close to a decade in academic tech transfer, working with innovators, disruptors in the life sciences healthcare space, and now I'm on the banking side, and I'll let Inara and the others introduce themselves.
Thanks, Pooja. My name is Inara. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Therapeutics. If you heard me pitch at the Innovator Showcase, just another recap, we're building the first customizable prosthetic in gynecology, used to treat a variety of different pelvic health conditions, starting with pelvic floor disorders, and later bridging that into preterm labor, post-cancer therapy, and so on.
Hello, everyone. It's really great to be here because I'm a Columbia Business School grad. So it's nice to be back home. My name is Anastasiia Timon. I'm a CEO and founder of Blooming Eve. Blooming Eve is a fertility platform that helps people to find the most efficient and affordable fertility centers.
Hi, my name is Lauraa Yecies. I'm the CEO of Bone Health Technologies, and our product OsteoBoost is the first clinically proven effective treatment with no serious adverse effects for osteoporosis and osteopenia. There's over 50 million American patients with osteopenia, another 12 million with osteoporosis. Hip fractures from osteoporosis are deadly. Fractures from osteopenia, vertebral compression fractures and other fractures are more common than heart attack, stroke, and breast cancer combined. And there are no approved treatments for patients with osteopenia. So we're really excited to bring this new therapeutic to market.
Awesome. Since I joined Silicon Valley Bank, we've been working closely with innovators in the health tech space, and also closely with innovators in the women's health space. And I had the privilege of meeting Inara, Siggy, and a few others this year at the Women's Health Challenge that was run by HITLAB, and I got to know them a little more closely and the amazing work that they are doing. Just want to touch upon a few facts about women's health. So a country like the US, where close to 20% of the GDP is spent on healthcare, why should a country like ours have high maternal mortality rates, disparities in women's health? So I'm going to hopefully touch upon these topics as I discuss not just their technologies and how they came about to start their own ventures. So just wanted to lay that out, that there's a lot of work to be done, but the landscape looks promising with leaders like Inara, Lauraa, and Anastasiia leading the way. So Inara, I'll start with you. You have an amazing background. You started Therapeutics, and many congratulations on your latest financial raise. Super exciting. Tell us more. What was the spark that led you to start Therapeutics?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great story. So back in 2019, I was just an undergrad student at the time at McGill University, and had the chance to join the Surgical Innovation Fellowship, which is really a mirror off of the Stanford Biodesign program, if anybody's familiar with that, where I met my two co-founders, Megan and Dr. Gangle, where we shadowed him in the OR for a couple of courses and just saw he was doing so many hysterectomy surgeries, and we were like, why is this such a common procedure that you have to do on a day-to-day? And, it all boiled down to the fact that specifically looking into pelvic floor disorders and pelvic organ prolapse specifically, nothing has changed in this space for the last couple decades. Pessaries are one of the oldest medical devices dating back to the Egyptians. What's changed is that we've gone from using pomegranates to donuts that are now made out of silicone. So really, there was a lot of work that needed to be done in that space, and we got inspired by the Invisalign model and thought, how can we kind of leverage that aspect of personalization and do some more clinical research to develop a new design and bring that to the market for more successful treatment outcomes for non-invasive therapy. So that was really the founding story behind Fem Therapeutics. And after we graduated from the program, we entered a few entrepreneurial competitions and were able to lift this off the ground. And we've been at it for the last 4 years.
Awesome, that's great. And you, so is it safe to say that the pessary is the closest competitor or a product in the same category as your product?
Exactly, yeah. The pessaries that are out there manufactured from Cooper Surgical, Medgyne, those are the closest competitors to our devices. And those devices, again, haven't changed in the last 50, 60 years.
Awesome. Thanks, Inara. Lauraa, Anastasiia, I'm going to skip and have a question for Lauraa. Menopause, again, this is a subject that 50% of the population on Earth, I don't want to call it a disease, it's something that we all go through, and there are significant adverse side effects related to menopause. The deterioration of bone health is one of the major side effects. So what led you, embark on the journey and start bone health technology? So
Yeah.
take us back to the early days of bone health.
So the early days actually started before I joined. The inventor of the OsteoBoost device is a physician, Dr. Shay Mangrum. He's a physical medicine and rehab doctor, or we sometimes call him physiatrist, and he specialized in pain treatment for spine. And what he saw was a number of women, just many, many women coming to him with severe pain from vertebral compression fractures. So it's not hard to imagine that if your vertebrae compress, that's going to be painful, and that could affect your nerves, your well-being. And this is the most common osteoporotic fracture. There's not really any good treatments for vertebral compression fractures. Sometimes they'll sort of prop them up with a balloon and cement, but that affects the adjacent joints. And so he really became interested in what could be done to prevent them. A lot of his patients were telling him that they don't have alternatives, they don't want to take the medications. And so he saw the science around whole body vibration. NASA funded a whole area of research on whole body vibration therapy to improve bone density in astronauts. And the science there was very good, but those platforms are hard to use. Compliance was typically not good. So hence the idea of finding another form factor, and came across the idea of the belt. I brought one here just to give you a little visual. It's a vibration pack that's worn on the lumbar spine. It's 30 minutes a day. You can wear it while you're going for a walk, walking the dog, doing chores. And what we showed is that we have reduced the rate of loss of bone density and bone strength by over 80%. And for the statisticians in the room, p-values of 0.01 and 0.008 for vertebral strength and vertebral bone density. And so for the first time, we have something that doesn't have serious adverse events like medication, that can slow the rate of bone loss, and more importantly, something we can use early. So there is no equivalent in the bone health space to a statin or metformin or an ACE inhibitor that you use early on in the course of the disease. We basically wait till you get osteoporosis and then say, here's some medications, and less than 10% of the patients are actually taking them. And so, I'm super excited because there's this large unmet need, tens of millions of women. And I think like the menopause and older women's health space in general, we kind of just have accepted these side effects or conditions. In this case, it's a serious condition, and just sort of, okay, older women get old and frail and shrink. No.
Yeah.
We don't want to allow that to happen. Just like we want to prevent heart attacks, we want to prevent fractures.
Yeah, again, just to touch upon something that you mentioned, okay, this should be a way of life, because we never really, paid heed to, what women are going through at menopause. I was reading an article where prepubescent girls, once they hit puberty and they experience immense pain, that is also dismissed, but they don't realize that, extreme pain is not normal for a woman that is menstruating. So again, extreme pain bone loss, events like these in women's health, they should not be accepted. So I completely understand what you said, Laura. Anastasia, moving to you, you're a Columbia grad, local. Blooming Eve is a Brooklyn company. Walk us through, your company, and now that you've come out of the Techstars Catalyst program.
Yes, thank you so much. And I like your comment about pain, because endometriosis is
Yes.
one of the examples in reproductive medicine where we deal with pain and it's basically ignored. But coming back to Blooming Eve and our company, I've been a business development and strategy executive at another health tech startup. It was not in fertility, but I've had a passion to reproductive medicine, and I also have fertility operators and fertility doctors in my family, so I knew the field pretty well, but not before I became a patient. That's when I really decided that I want to change that. This is not right. There's just something should be changed. So I will walk you through how right now people are looking for fertility care in the US. First of all, it's not covered by insurance in many states. So only large employers are covering fertility treatments. Fertility preservation, 11% of employers are covering. So to find a clinic right now, you go to their website. A lot of the website do not list the pricing. So you do not know how much your treatment is gonna cost. It goes up to the point that people are selling their houses to get fertility care in the US. So after that, let's say you decided to go with the fertility center and you're trying to call them to figure out the pricing, you're trying to book an appointment, and you easily can spend hours doing that, which is also, I think, insane. And after all that, there is no easy way to compare clinical expertise, clinical outcomes of these fertility centers. So that's why that all brought us to creating Blooming Eve. So what is Blooming Eve? It's a fertility web-based platform where you can go and you can find a fertility center which is near you, and then you can compare, sort them, and filter by the pricing, clinical outcomes, reviews, and wait time, and then you can book online appointment with this fertility center. So why is it important? I will give you just a few stats. 1 in 5 women of reproductive age suffer from infertility. 1 in 8 couples are suffering from infertility in the US. And there was an article from Fertility and Sterility mentioning that 40% of women of reproductive age in the US do not have an access or have limited access to fertility care in the US. So that's why I think our mission is very important, because it improves an access to high quality fertility care. It also brings the transparency to the industry, because now people can save a lot of money on their fertility treatments and they know what their treatment will cost. So that's what we are doing.
But again, you brought up a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. It's considered taboo, menstruation, menopause, fertility issues. OBGYNs are not really trained to help them work with their patient population. So when a menopausal woman visits their doctor, I don't think women who are premenopausal even have a discussion. They just go through the process as if it's supposed to happen and something not to be discussed. Same thing with fertility. It's very private. Couples go through it, and there are minimal resources, and it's hard to find good doctors who actually counsel couples on fertility. So I think the service that you're providing through Blooming Eve is so much so very needed. Inara, going back to you, and starting your company in Canada, can you tell us more, being a woman entrepreneur, hustling, trying to fundraise, growing the company, making sure that everything works right from the science, the technology, but you have the right eyes and the audience looking at you so you can successfully grow and scale. Walk us through what that journey has been like for you.
Yeah, great question. So we're proud to be Canadian-based, headquartered in Montreal. We've had a lot of support from the Quebec government that has really supported our early stages of development and still continues to be a huge supporter and investor in the business. But I will say that with our last raise, it was especially difficult targeting venture capital funds and institutional funds in Canada willing to invest at such an early stage, and especially in a women's health business where you're predominantly pitching to male investors around the table and trying to convince them that 50% of the population isn't niche, that there is huge market potential here and that this shouldn't be a segment that we continue to ignore. So really the main difficulty that I found with continuing to scale this business was that barrier of education that we had to do and overcome, showing that these are the stats, these are the signs, and this is why we should care now and not later, and watch someone else take the lead 5 to 10 years from now. So that was my biggest lesson learned, and why I decided to approach the US with our last raise. And we're very lucky to be supported by a New York-based VC firm, but they understood that, and they didn't start with that education aspect. They understood the need, and they said, tell me more about how we can support you in getting this, in making your mission possible, and what grants can we unlock for you, and what non-dilutive capital can we give you so that you're able to accomplish that. And so I would say that was my biggest lesson learned, and really why the future or a majority of Canadian-based businesses end up coming to the US, because it's more fast-paced, there's more capital, and there's that understanding now that women's health should be invested in, and is now a hot topic or an investment thesis for a majority of institutional funds.
Yeah, and there is a growing momentum, and again, super proud of where New York is headed. Recently, there was an investor summit at the New York Stock Exchange, purely for women investors investing in women's health. It was the first time, and it was a power-packed room with women who truly care and who want to make a difference in the women's health space. The other, I don't want to say fun fact, but interesting fact is many of the funds that invest in women's health are primarily micro funds. So it's really important for not just women, but men and women to focus and to pledge to move the needle in the women's health space.
Absolutely. What is that statistic? 2% of funding goes towards women founders versus, and the rest goes to male founders. The reason why there is not as much innovation in women's health today as there was a couple years back was because there were less females empowered enough to go and create their own businesses and conceptualize new innovations in this space. So that's a huge component to that for sure.
Yeah, well put. And between you, Anastasiia, and Lauraa, we have 3 companies that are at 3 different stages. So Anastasiia, question for you, what has your experience been? And we have a live audience here, but there's a big virtual audience. Many of them are early stage founders who are just about, thinking about spinning out their ventures. Walk them through what your journey has been like.
Yeah, so we founded a company in July last year, and we went to institutional investors right away just to build relationships. And what we realized, we got the same pushback. So everyone wanted to see attraction, and then the market really changed. And so the valuations and everything, and everyone was more like passively investing, even with all the money that are sitting there in the funds. So we decided to stop raising and bootstrap the company till the market is better, till we're in a better position to go and pitch to the same investors that we already know, that know us pretty well as well. So that was the decision that we made. We also went through Techstars Founder Catalyst program, which is non-equity program. So for us, so far, we didn't give equity to anyone besides advisors. And I think at this market, it's probably a good decision to make if you can't do that. I understand that for a lot of products, it is not possible. So that is something to take into consideration. But at the same time, I want to stress the point that this is totally economical and investment decision to invest in women's health, because women control 80% of healthcare expenses. 80%. This is the biggest line of the budget, right, of our budget. So why wouldn't you invest in the business like that? And I think, so from my past, when I was a private equity investor, I can say that that sounds like a very good opportunity and return on investment. But again, we don't see that in the numbers, unfortunately.
That's awesome. Yesterday, Bill Taranto, when he was on stage, providing feedback on investment strategies, and also a few tips and takeaways for early stage founders. He mentioned it's good to go through, a good accelerator program, Techstars, Y Combinator. There are a lot of them, because when an investor is looking at your startup and wants to invest, it just adds that extra layer of credibility. The other thing is raising money through non-dilutive funds. So Lauraa, Bone Health has been through accelerator programs, successfully fundraised through SBIR. Walk us through how that has been for the company.
So Bone Health Technologies was able to get 3 different SBIR grants. The first, a very small proof of concept grant where we showed some early data on the impact of our device on NTX. So NTX is a blood-based marker of bone turnover. Based on the positive result from the proof of concept, we raised a $2 million grant to fund the pivotal study, and we launched that in 2019. Now, it wasn't enough to fully complete the study, and that's when I was brought in to raise outside capital. I then raised $2.75 million in outside capital, and we then got another almost $3 million grant to do a follow-on study as well as commercialization readiness. And so it's really been, a lot of work through the combination of raising. It is challenging in this space, but the non-dilutive has been key. But if you think about it, who is paying for all these fractures, right? Well, it's basically the government, which means it's all us through our taxes. So, CMS, the National Institute of Aging, they're pretty aware of this problem. And so I think that was what allowed us, combined with the science and having the right idea and presentation, to get the non-dilutive funding. The other thing I want to say, because you talked about these women investors and women's health, is we have raised from both funds focused on women's health and women leaders, as well as regular or non, gender-focused VCs. But when you're raising around, the beginning is the hardest. The first money in is always really challenging. And so I really want to provide a shout out to Astia Angels, Golden Seeds, Portfolio. They invested early, also Good Growth Capital, who has a number of women CEOs in their portfolio. They saw that promise, they took that early risk. And I do think, one of the things I learned here is, whose interest does this spark? And when I'm, who are the women angels out there? Well, they mostly have osteopenia or osteoporosis. Not all of them, but I think a lot of people invested because they wanted access to the device. And so, knowing who is going to connect with the problem and, that join you in the passion for the solution is so important.
Awesome. The product that you've brought on stage, Lauraa, is that OsteoBoost?
It is.
It is. So we didn't get an opportunity to have you on stage to dig a little deeper on what the actual product is. Can you share a little bit more?
Sure. So, bones respond to stimulation, just like any system in your body. And, I mentioned the NASA research on whole body vibration. So when astronauts are in space, their bones aren't getting stimulated, neither their muscles, they lose bone density. And so when you stand on Earth, that's 1 G of force. Unfortunately, walking doesn't give you much more stimulation than that, but when you're jogging or running or jumping, that provides 2 to 4 G of force on your bones. Well, essentially the vibration is providing that force. It's providing a mechanical stimulation. So your bone cells, your bones have metabolism, just like your blood sugar, right? And when that metabolism is going on, if you are stimulating the bones, they have an improved response. They build more cells, the rate of taking away the old dead cells slows down. And so, that's essentially the science behind it. There's dozens of peer-reviewed journals around vibration. It was studied in animals, at a cellular level, in humans by NASA, and then we are studying it in the form factor of a belt. And with the belt, essentially the vibration pack sits on the lumbar spine. And if you think about where people fracture their spine and their hips, we're applying the vibration directly to the vulnerable anatomy. And then it's also really easy to use, right? You put it on, you wear it. The clinical study, the patients wear it 30 minutes a day, wear it while you take the dog for a walk or while you're doing chores. And so what we saw in our study was greater than 80% compliance. And also we saw a dose response. The more people used it, the better their response was. So we're super excited to bring it to market. We submitted to the FDA in February. We just presented our top line results at the big endocrinology conference in Chicago. And lots ahead of us to do.
That's awesome. Anastasiia, I think a question for all of you. Are there any, partnerships that you're excited about this year? How does the next 6 months to a year look for you? Inara, maybe you can start.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So we just started a partnership with Mayo Clinic platform for the last couple of months, and it's been fantastic because we've gained access to such a rich, de-identified data set to work with to further train our predictive models. And once that's complete in July, we're gaining access to a huge care network that we're hoping to continue working with through pilot studies and strategic sales next year. So that's been a huge win for us. And recently got connected with the Chief Health Officer at Planned Parenthood Federation of America as well. So that's a fantastic opportunity that they're looking for to start providing access and education around what happens after childbirth. How can we take care of our pelvic floors? What's beyond just Kegel exercises? How can we stay on top of it? And what solutions are there as alternatives to surgical procedures? So that's another opportunity we're really excited about.
Excellent. Anastasiia?
Yeah, from our perspective, we have partnerships with 7% of fertility centers across the US right now already. So one of the initiatives that I'm very proud of, we are organizing a lot of educational events and fertility awareness events with all these fertility centers. So one of those was yesterday, actually. So that I think is very important work that we are doing. And another thing is our go-to-market strategy is very much focused on OBGYNs because we want to bring the solution to the place where the decision-making process is happening. So, and we are talking to a lot of the OBGYN networks to basically establish these partnerships in New York and California right now. So that's what we are going to work on next few months.
Great. And Lauraa?
So, partnerships are very important, especially for startups if you can partner with a larger company. Right now, we're doing a clinical trial at UCSF. This was this last grant-funded study that I mentioned, and that trial is being led by Dr. Dolores Schobeck. She's one of the leaders in the field. She wrote the guidelines for osteoporosis treatment for the Endocrinology Society. And I think, if you think about primary care doctors who would likely be our typical prescriber, they rely on the guidelines. They rely on the KOLs and the experts to say, this product has good evidence, this is a good treatment. And so we're really appreciative of the opportunity to work with leaders such as that. And We have other key opinion leaders, scientific advisors, who are working with us to help design our trials. The initial protocol was designed in partnership with Dr. David Karp. He led the original Fosamax trials. So I think these scientific partnerships with key opinion leaders are so important for early stage startups. People have said to me, well, how did you get these people working with your company? You're a small startup. And I think what's going on is, in the osteoporosis space, there are no new drugs in late stage trials. There are not a lot of good new things on the horizon. So I think they were excited first about our science, and there is good science behind vibration, but about the need and the way that we can go about making a difference in this field.
Great. Yeah. Again, in this day and age when, founders are facing headwinds, when it comes to fundraising, showing that traction and getting meaningful data out of strategic partnerships becomes supremely important. So thank you for sharing that, Lauraa. I know we have, a couple of minutes left before we round up. Any words of advice for early stage founders that you would want to give, or, things that you would have done differently if you had the opportunity to go back in time? So Inara, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I will say words of advice just to the crowd in general. Femtech was coined in 2016 by a founder of a period tracking app called Clue. So we're still in its infancies. It's only been a few years since there's this movement around investment in women's health, but still a lot that needs to be done. Another stat that I can share with you is 5 times more research is put into erectile dysfunction, for example, which only affects 19% of males versus women, 90% of women that experience PMS, for example. And so there's a lot that needs to be done to bridge this divide, and a lot more data that needs to come out for more innovation to take place here. And so I urge those that are looking to invest in women's health, or founders that are just starting their businesses, to really look at how we can collect as much data as possible so that we can unlock more research and development down the line, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done and not a lot of data that is currently being tracked now. And we recently took a step back with the Roe v. Wade decision from the Supreme Court, which not only is taking a step back in our reproductive rights, but also the way that we can commercialize or really gain access to reproductive data as well. So we really need to understand new ways of collecting this data as efficiently as possible for the next couple of years.
Great.
Yeah, so on the topic of partnerships, as a word of advice, I think that everyone in the industry should start working together, really, because there is a lot of the ways that we can partner. So that is one. There was an article recently, the blog post really, of Hailey Taco. She is also founder of Co-Fertility, also Columbia Business School grad. And she was talking about that a win for one is a win for all, and I really think this is true. So, and with research, with the funding, with the partnerships, with the clients, maybe joint clients, co-marketing activities, that would accelerate the industry so much if we start working together.
Great. Lauraa.
So to the founders out there, reach out to me one-on-one, happy to give advice. To everyone else, this is the time and place for women's health. It is a rising tide. Just menopause alone. Oprah, Michelle Obama, Gwyneth Paltrow. Menopause is hot in more ways than one, okay? These women have disposable income. Employers hopefully are going to be covering fertility. As soon as that happens, there's going to be way more spend. So I think now is the time, and it's synergistic. So think about the companies that are providing telehealth for menopause. Those companies, as they're doing well, they are a channel for my company. So I think success begets success, and it's a rising tide, there's synergy. And I'll just give one story as a proof point. When I was raising money, I was pitching a couple of angel groups, and one of them came to me back that they were interested. They gave me one number. I was like, okay, that's great. Start the diligence. Then they came back. Actually, it's going to be 5x. I said, really? That's great. How come? We just exited Alydia. So that company, Alydia, was acquired, Merck Organon. We're doubling down. We're keeping our women's health money on the table. They put their Alydia winnings and earnings into Bone Health Technologies. I want to give them as much or better return. So now's the time to get in.
That's an amazing story. Thanks, Laura. I think we're getting close to wrapping up. Just wanted to thank you, everybody, for your insights and sharing your experiences with the audience here and virtually. This year, 2023, is the 30th anniversary of the NIH Revitalization Act, which recommended to include women and minorities in clinical trials. Unfortunately, that didn't happen until 2016. So I'm really hoping that the momentum is kept up from here on, and there are more investments, more energy that goes into the space. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.